Hello, everyone, and welcome to Slash Film Daily for Monday, March 15th, 2021. On today's episode of the show, we're going to be talking about the latest film and TV news, including this morning's Academy Award nominations. My name is Ben Pearson. I'm the senior writer at slashfilm.com, and I'm joined on today's episode by Slash Film managing editor Jacob Hall.
Hello, hello.
Weekend editor Brad Oman.
Hey, that's me.
And writers Hoai-Tran.
Hey, everyone.
And Chris Evangelista.
Hi.
All right, everyone. Welcome to the show. Welcome to another week. I'm going to spring this on my fellow podcasters right now. So instead of us just sort of, reading through the nominations, which people can read at slashfilm.com, I thought we'd mix things up a little bit. I've in our document here listed, each person with a category that you're going to read. And I would like you guys to read the list of nominees and then finish with the nominee that you either think will win or hope will win. And you can choose and explain to the audience, the listeners, what your choice is, just to add a little bit of fun to the proceedings here. So let's kick things off. HT, let's start with you. You're going to read the nominees for Best Actor.
Okay, Best Actor nominees include Riz Ahmed for Sound of Metal, Chadwick Boseman, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, Anthony Hopkins, The Father, Gary Oldman, Mank, and Steven Yeun, Minari. And we're doing who we hope or think will win.
Yeah, either one, whichever one, or both, if you want to throw both of them in there.
I'll throw both in the ring. I'm going to go against the grain, and I hope that Riz Ahmed wins for Sound of Metal just because I absolutely adore his performance. It was the one that really resonated the most with me, even though Steven Yeun with Minari was also really high up there with my favorites. But I think will win is Chadwick Boseman for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, just because of the cultural importance of his posthumous nomination.
Okay. Chris, let's go to you. You have the nominees for Best Actress.
Okay. Viola Davis for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. Andra Day for The United States versus Billie Holiday. Vanessa Kirby for Pieces of a Woman. Frances McDormand for Nomadland. And Carey Mulligan for Promising Young Woman. If I were voting, I would vote for Frances McDormand, but I kind of think Carey Mulligan is going to win this because...
Interesting.
I just feel like Promising Young Woman has been a surprising award season contender. I think the movie is good. I don't think it's as good as everyone else seems to think. So I continue to be surprised that it's doing so well in award season, but I kind of think that's how it's shaping up.
Okay. Brad, you have the nominees for Best Director.
Indeed. So for Best Director, we have Thomas Vinterberg for Another Round, David Fincher for Mank, Lee Isaac Chung for Minari, Chloe Zhao for Nomadland, and Emerald Fennell for Promising Young Woman. And I think that Chloe Zhao is the one who will likely come away with this award. Nomadland has been doing very well on the award circuit, as has Chloe as a director, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of Academy members want to try and make some history by making an Asian female director the first one to actually win this award, since it's a big deal that she was also nominated. But personally, I would also be very happy if Lee Isaac Chung won, because I think Minari is fantastic, and it's in a way it shares similarities with Nomadland, even though the stories are different, and the I guess one of them is a little more hopeful in one regard than the other. And that's not to say that Nomadland is without hope, but it's a little bit more bleak, I feel like. But yeah, I would be happy if either one of them won that award, but I feel like Chloe Zhao is going to be the one to take it.
Okay. I'm going to read the nominees for Best Original Screenplay. Judas and the Black Messiah, Minari, Promising Young Woman, Sound of Metal, and The Trial of the Chicago 7. If I were voting, I think I would give this Sound of Metal. I mean, we've talked a lot about this movie on the podcast over the past few months, especially at the end of 2020 when we were doing our sort of best moments of the year and favorite movies of the year and all that stuff. So I'm not going to go too long on that, but I love that movie in the way that it's structured and how everything about it just feels truly, I mean, the category is Best Original Screenplay, and Sound of Metal truly feels like an original story that we haven't seen before. I'm guessing this is going to go to The Trial of the Chicago 7, which is a movie that I think all of us were, a little bit. It wasn't any of our like number one favorite movies of the year. We'll put it that way. I know Brad liked it more than anybody else on this episode of the show, but so it's not like a terrible movie, but it's a movie that I think earned an inexplicable number of Oscars today, and
it's also category fraud, Ben, because no one's talking about this, but that production bought the rights to the documentary The Chicago 10, and then over the years that documentary exchanged hands numerous times, and now suddenly, even though the production is based on a documentary, it's now an original screenplay, which I call foul.
Oh, so it should be best adapted. Interesting. I did not know that. Okay.
Is that Netflix's fault because they wanted it submitted for original, or is that just how the rules made it so that it couldn't be submitted as adapted because the documentary has changed hands?
That's a good question. My guess is that Netflix pushed it for original. My guess is hoping that everybody forgot that this production was at one point based on a documentary that they literally paid the rights for in order to base a feature on it.
Man, interesting. Okay. All right, Jacob, let's go to you. You're going to read the nominees for Best Picture.
Yeah, Best Picture. There are 8 of them this year. The Father, Judas and the Black Messiah, Mank, Minari, Nomadland, Promising Young Woman, Sound of Metal, and The Trial of the Chicago 7. If it was me, my vote goes to Sound of Metal. It was very high on my personal list, my highest ranked of these movies, which is a outside of Chicago 7, I think a really outstanding lineup of movies. It's hard for me to complain about 7 of these movies being here personally. Sorry, I have not seen The Father, so 6 of these movies I can vouch for. But I think Nomadland has this in the bag. It has too much momentum. It's won all the other awards. It's the one movie that everybody rightfully likes. So I think that's the one that's going to actually take it.
Okay. All right. So let's go around the circle one more time with another round of categories here. HT, why don't you read the Best Adapted Screenplay nominees?
Best Adapted Screenplay nominees are Borat Subsequent Movie Film, The Father, Nomadland, One Night in Miami, and The White Tiger. So my pick is going to be for both ones that the one that I want and the one I think will win is Nomadland. Again, like everyone has been saying, it's got the momentum for this award season, and it was also my favorite movie of the year. So I think it's just an exquisite film, and I'm happy that it got nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay, and I think it will take away that prize.
Excellent. Chris, Best Animated Film.
Onward, Over the Moon, a Shaun the Sheep movie, Farmageddon, Soul, and Wolfwalkers. I've only actually seen 2 of these movies, so I don't know how qualified I am to say who's going to win. I guess I would, of the 2 I've seen, I would vote for Soul because I think Onward is actually a bad movie. I don't think it deserves any awards. It's kind of a shitty film, honestly, but that's what I think. But if between the 2 I've seen, Soul would be the one I would vote for. But I know a lot of people, especially on this podcast, have said Wolfwalkers is very good, and I need to get around to watching that at some point.
You need to watch Wolfwalkers, Chris.
So I believe it's on Hulu, so I will watch it at some point.
Apple TV Plus. Apple TV Plus.
I don't have Apple TV Plus. I don't know what that is. I don't have that.
All right. Well, yeah, hopefully, I think it definitely will come down to those 2. It's going to be a battle between Soul and Wolfwalkers. So we'll see which one ends up taking it. Brad, let's go to Best Score. What are the nominees there?
The nominees are The Five Bloods, Mank, Minari, News of the World, and Soul. And the one I think should win and the one I want to win is without a doubt Soul. Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross made an incredible score that sounds unlike any music that Pixar has used in their movies before. Even back when I did like the advanced press day for this movie, the music is something that stuck out to me immediately. They just came up with this really interesting sound to represent the ethereal plane of the great beyond and the great before, and just came up with some cool instrumentals to bring that just, other world to life. And so, yeah, I think that definitely deserves it.
Okay, I'm going to read the nominees now for Best Supporting Actor. We have Sacha Baron Cohen in The Trial of the Chicago 7, Daniel Kaluuya in Judas and the Black Messiah, Leslie Odom Jr. in One Night in Miami, Paul Raci in Sound of Metal, and Lakeith Stanfield in Judas and the Black Messiah. If I were voting, this would go to Paul Raci, which I think is a surprise and a great piece of inclusion on this list. I really like that performance a lot. Which one do I think will actually win? This is a tough one. man, I maybe Daniel Kaluuya in Judas and the Black Messiah. Anybody else have any like strong feelings about how they, think that the tide might turn in this category?
Can I give you my galaxy brain theory for what happens?
Oh, please do.
Daniel Kaluuya and Lakeith Stanfield, both being from Judas and the Black Messiah, knock each other out to split the vote. People realize that Sacha Baron Cohen is actually bad. Trial of Chicago 7, don't vote for him. Leslie Odom Jr. is a movie, well, not Miami, a movie didn't get a lot of momentum, which leaves the door open for Paul Raci to pull a surprise upset.
Okay, well, I mean, I would be thrilled with that outcome.
Cynically, I want to say, what if all that happens, but we end up with a Sacha Baron Cohen win for Trial of the Chicago 7?
If it was for Borat's subsequent movie film, I'd be all about that because he's great in Borat. But man, I don't like that performance at all in Trial of Chicago 7.
All right. Well, Jacob, take us hopefully to something that you do like a little bit more in the Best Supporting Actress category. List those nominees for us.
Yeah, it's Maria Bakalova for Borat's subsequent movie film, Glenn Close for Hillbilly Elegy, Olivia Colman for The Father, Amanda Seyfried for Mank, and Yoo Jong-yoon for Minari. This is a strange category. I feel like there's no like obvious frontrunner here. If I was picking, I'd go for Amanda Seyfried from Mank because I think she's a wonderful actress, and that is one of the key parts of that movie. And I think she's like the soul of that movie in a lot of ways. But considering the momentum of how things are going, I think Maria Bakalova could pull us off for Borat, and I think she's going to win it.
That would be very interesting and kind of awesome.
I can't be mad at it.
Too awesome for the Oscars, but I don't know. We'll see. Maybe they've surprised me before, so we'll see what happens. All right. So you guys can read more about the nominees that we did not list at the article that I'll link in the show notes. We also put together a Surprises and Snubs article, and we're not going to go through every single one of those. Again, I encourage you to click on the link and read the full thing, but I just wanted to sort of, take us around the horn one more time and have each of us talk about just one thing that either surprised us or sort of rubbed us the wrong way in terms of a snub. HT, let's start with you.
First Cow. First Cow got completely snubbed, not only by the Oscars, but basically this entire awards season. It has gotten no momentum throughout the SAG, DGA, and everything, all the other like lead ups to the Oscars. And it's a real big shame because it was one of my favorite movies of 2020, and it topped many critics' best of lists. But for some reason, despite Kelly Reichardt giving a really lovely and low-key pioneer drama that is about this really intense and deep male friendship, and it's just about wanting to who just want to open their own baked goods shop with a cow. It just kind of got completely overlooked, and I'm still incensed by it. And I just want to give my shout out to First Cow, a movie that we don't deserve.
Okay, Chris, let's go to you.
I am very baffled at how The Five Bloods has been pretty much ignored through most of this awards season. I've seen the argument that like, oh, it came out in the summer, and I always hate that argument. It's like, are your attention spans really that short, Oscar voters, that like anything that came out in the summer you can't consider? Like, that's a bullshit thing. But even if you want to like overlook that movie as a whole, the fact that Delroy Lindo's performance is getting ignored is truly strange, because not only like is that, I think, like the best performance of the year, it's like one of the best performances I've ever seen on screen. It's just like a towering performance, and I don't understand why it keeps getting just completely overlooked. I think there were like one or two like local groups, maybe like the Chicago group, I can't remember who it was, who've recognized him and given him an award. And I know Critics' Choice nominated him because I'm in Critics' Choice and I voted for him, but he didn't win. But it's insane to me. Like this performance is just staggering. And I don't know if it's like too subtle a performance. I genuinely don't have an answer as to why he's been overlooked. To not even like nominate him is just like the final slap in the face, because one of the narratives that always pops up for Oscar season is this actor is overdue. So even if you want to overlook all that stuff I said, I would think we could argue that Delroy Lindo is an actor who's long overdue for awards recognition. He's been turning out great work through his whole career. So I am genuinely befuddled by this. I usually am befuddled by award season in general, but this is like the most egregious example I can think of in a long time. Like, what? I don't get it. Someone explain it to me. I don't know.
Yeah, I think every year there's always one, and you're right. I think this does seem like the most egregious lack of a nomination this year is that like tremendous performance from Delroy Lindo. Okay, so Brad, let's go to you. What surprise or snub did you want to talk about?
So it's great that Borat, subsequent movie film, did get a nomination for Best Adapted Screenplay and for Maria Bakalova. But I continue to be frustrated by the fact that the Academy consistently ignores comedies in the major categories. Case in point, Sacha Baron Cohen not getting a nomination for his performance in Borat's subsequent movie film, and the movie not getting nominated for Best Picture, what I think is totally deserving as a comedy. And it's just really frustrating that a lot of times the Academy, when a comedy does manage to break through and land some Oscar nominations, it usually gets the nominations in the categories that Borat 2 was nominated for, a supporting actor or actress nomination, and usually one of the screenplay nominations. The same thing happened with Bridesmaids, which was a huge hit, critically acclaimed, and Melissa McCarthy made it in there, and then the screenplay also made it in there. And it's just a shame that comedy is consistently overlooked. For some reason, for a movie to be considered Oscar-worthy, it has to be this big, powerful drama. And comedy is hard, supremely hard. In some cases, it's harder than drama because you're trying to tap into making people laugh who have so many different kinds of sense of humor. And so to make a comedy land is extremely difficult. And so I just wish that the Academy would stop being so stuffy when it comes to comedies and would recognize them more often. And so, like I said, while I'm glad Borat did get the nominations it did, I feel like it maybe deserved a little bit more.
Yeah, I think those are fair points. So for me, I think one of the biggest surprises was the inclusion of both Daniel Kaluuya and Lakeith Stanfield in the Best Supporting Actor category for Judas and the Black Messiah. I think Daniel Kaluuya has like the sort of like powerhouse performance there as Fred Hampton Jr. Like that is the performance of that movie as far as I'm concerned. And Lakeith Stanfield is good in the movie, but doesn't have nearly as much to do as that character. He feels overshadowed in a lot of ways, like purposely. Like the structure of the movie is about the Fred Hampton sort of like overshadowing him and this Bill O'Neill character basically like coming to grips with what he is being asked to do by the FBI and the sort of trance that Kaluuya's character casts over him and the sort of push and pull, the battle for this character's soul. It's kind of incredible. And Lakeith Stanfield is good, but Best Supporting Actor good, and that two performances from one movie got in this category. I'm just a little surprised. I think a lot of people probably predicted that Daniel Kaluuya would be in the mix here, but I'm guessing not that many predicted Lakeith Stanfield in this category as well. So that's just something that sort of caught me off guard. Jacob, let's go to you to round this out.
How often does the actual best performance of a year get nominated for an Oscar? I mean, as Chris already talked about Delroy Lindo, being missed here is egregious, but Paul Raci being nominated for Best Supporting Actor is an example of them actually getting it right. It's the kind of performance that is so real, it doesn't feel like acting. I feel like actors who act with a capital A, and that's who they tend to vote for a lot of the time, whereas actors who are so invisible that you forget you're watching a performance, and it feels natural in a way that it eases over you instead of like calling attention to yourself constantly. Paul Raci is doing very special work in Sound of Metal, and the fact that he's nominated is the most pleasant surprise to me of this entire slate.
Excellent. So I wanted to finish up this episode by just running through a couple pieces of trivia that we saw pop up on Twitter and articles and elsewhere. Chloe Zhao and Emerald Fennell, this is the first time that two women have been nominated for Best Director in the same year ever. And this is also, it puts them as number 6 and number 7 on the all-time list of women who have been nominated for Best Director in the entire history of the Oscars, which is like 90-something years. So, I mean, it took a very, very long time to get this far. And yeah, well overdue, I think.
Really quick, I would also like to add, since we didn't talk about this in the snubs area, I'm actually fairly frustrated that Regina King didn't end up being part of this ensemble as well, because One Night in Miami is an incredible film. It also got snubbed for Best Picture, and I just want to throw that out there that I love that movie. I think Regina King directed the hell out of it, and I wish that it got a little bit more love this award season.
But Brad, women can only have so much space. It gave women 2 spots. Are you saying women deserve 3 spots, Brad?
That's a good point, Jacob. I forgot. We do have to keep women down.
Sorry, HT. You're hearing the group mind men talk about how this all works. You're usually not invited to these parties.
Oh no.
Okay. So Minari's Steven Yeun and Yoon Yo-jung became the first actors born in Korea to earn nominations. So that's kind of a big deal there, especially coming on the heels of Parasite, a movie that really did incredibly well last year, although it was basically shut out. I think it was actually fully shut out of all of the acting categories. So it seems sort of like a little bit of a corrective to last year's mistakes. Minari producer Christina Oh is the first Asian American woman to receive a nomination for Best Picture. And then sort of along those lines, Judas and the Black Messiah marks the first time an all-black producing lineup earned a nomination for Best Picture. And that would be Shaka King, who also directed the movie, Charles D. King, and Ryan Coogler, who produced that film. So I'm sure there are other pieces of trivia that we just haven't fully parsed all of these nominees yet to be able to figure out. But I just wanted to mention those because they're historic and noteworthy and very cool. So I think that's basically going to bring us to the end of today's episode. It's just a short Oscar episode. And again, I encourage you all to click on these links to these stories and sort of dive a little bit deeper if you want to know more about some of the other categories that we didn't discuss. I guess before we leave, do we have any other closing thoughts on the nominations? Is anybody feeling especially good or bad or peeved or anything about what happened this morning?
This is the Oscars that I've been least annoyed by in literally years, maybe 15 years. Not because it did a whole lot better, because it just didn't do too much egregious. I mean, there's only a handful of truly egregious things here, and I was kind of prepared for them. I will say that I'm looking over these nominees. There's no way Mank wins any of his 10 nominations, right? If it's one movie like The Irishman, it goes
Is it going to pull
0.
The Irishman from last year?
Yeah, I think so. Exactly. I think that there's Mank's one of those movies that's eligible for so much because of its breadth, but I cannot imagine it winning a single trophy. I'm curious if you guys have any other similar thoughts looking at this list of what you may think will win big or won't.
I mean, I think you guys have said it. Nomadland seems like the movie that has had the most momentum for the longest time, and it's impressive. The whole Oscar race is this really long thing, and it's this train that it has to there's a lot of strategy that goes into it, and for Nomadland to start that hype as early as it did and remain consistently at the top and in the forefront of people's minds for this long, the longest Oscar season in history, I think is really impressive, and I think speaks to that movie's staying power in voters' minds. So I think that's the movie that's probably going to clean up in terms of overall awards and things like that. Let's see. Anybody else have any other thoughts? Any sort of macro observations of any of the nominations here?
Not about the nominations, but I will say I'm very curious to see how the ceremony goes this year, because the Golden Globes were a disaster, and the Oscars is usually a better produced show. People care about it more, but in the age of the coronavirus pandemic, I'm just not sure if they can pull off an exciting ceremony, considering all of the restrictions that will still be in place when it comes around in April. But I hope that they can do something great with it, because I will say I watched the Grammys yesterday, and they put together quite an impressive show, to the point where the performances during the show were actually better than they would have been if they were confined to the stages that they usually are at the Grammys, because it forced, or not necessarily forced, maybe allowed artists to do interesting things on various venues outside of the Grammys arena, which is usually the Staples Center, right? Isn't that where it usually happens?
I think so.
Yeah. So I obviously the Oscars can't necessarily do as much because there aren't a ton of performances to be had other than those that are nominated for Best Original Song. But I hope that there's a way to make it interesting, so it's not just the same rigmarole we've seen for award shows for the past year.
The Grammys might actually be the Nokia Theater in LA. I don't know. It's one of those two. So please don't send us angry emails if you're a huge Grammy fan out there. Well, Brad, let me ask you really quick before we wrap up this episode. What was that experience like? Did they? You're talking about how they could perform on, in a way that wasn't as encumbered as it would be just on that single stage. What did they do? Did they have people perform remotely from like outdoor stages? Or I didn't watch any of the Grammys at all.
So there were some that were like outdoor venues, but like it was really interesting actually, because it was almost like they shot live music videos for a lot of these performances. Like I think a lot of them were still indoor, but they had very elegantly and well constructed stages with like full on sets and props and everything, like really impressive production design. But there were some where like there was one that was shot outside that was super impressive to me. The way that just it moved around in this big space, it made it feel like an actual like neighborhood block, and just involved a lot of moving pieces, and it was super impressive. So again, it's probably the kind of things where you wouldn't necessarily see this happen at the Oscars, because they don't normally do that. It's really mostly about the awards and just seeing all the celebrities there and whatnot. But I was super impressed by how the Grammys pulled off. So I hope that the Oscars have figured out a way to make the ceremony interesting.
Yeah, I think the president of the Academy, right before these nominations came out this morning, confirmed a rumor that this year's Oscar ceremony is going to be taking place at the Dolby Theater, which is where it always takes place in Hollywood. But it's also going to take place at Union Station in Los Angeles. So I think there were some rumblings that they might be able to incorporate, like a live audience element, even during the age of the coronavirus, because of the size of that venue and being able to have enough room to space people out and stuff. So yeah, I'm curious as well to see what that looks like, the Oscars being split from two sort of home base locations. So the ceremony itself will air on Sunday, April 25th, in case anybody wants to add that to your calendars right now. Okay, I think that's going to bring us to the end of the show. You can find more about all the stories that we mentioned on today's show at slashfilm.com and linked inside the show notes of this episode. Slash Film Daily is published every weekday, bringing you the most exciting news from the world of movies and TV, as well as deeper dives into the great features you can find on the site. You can subscribe to this show on Apple, Google, Overcast, Spotify, all of the popular podcast apps, and send your feedback, questions, comments, and concerns, and mailbag topics to us at peter@slashfilm.com. Make sure to leave your name and general geographic location in case we mention your email on the air. Don't forget to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts. Tell your friends, spread the word. Thank you all for listening, and we will talk to you tomorrow.